Such a great song. I'm going to say it again. I think I just said this last week or the week before. There is no reason you should not be touring as a New Thought artist. I mean, really. The songs you write are brilliant. They really are. Well, I don't think we would ever lose him. I don't think we would ever lose him. But it doesn't mean that he can't have an album and occasionally go on the road.
Okay.
We'll just make sure that when you're on the road that Gina Walker's here. So, the great thing about this song is that it's perfect for what today's talk is all about. Now, I have to tell you that, early in the week, Tanis and Pierre call me. So what's your talk about? What song, do you think will be appropriate? And I said, well, this week, I actually had a talk title very early in the week. In fact, I have talk titles now leading up through Easter, which is rare for me. It's very rare for me. Because I don't usually like to assign a title to something I'm going to speak about so far in advance. But then I remember the wise words of my teacher in ministerial school who said, never let the title of your talk get in the way of what you need to say. So, regardless of the talk titles, I will always say what needs to be said. So today's title is Talked... You put a curse on me, Tom. Not that we believe in curses, we don't.
There is perfection.
But you did one.
Perfection.
So today's talk is titled Turn Around. Which is what I told Tanis and Pierre. It's titled...
This is going on YouTube!
I know.
If you turn around 3 times,
You know what it is? It's red light
all
fever,
over
too,
again.
because I see that red light. It's like, hello, you're
Turn
on
the
camera. Turn around. Now, this will all make sense.
Turn around.
Well, and that was the funny thing is I said, well, the first song that comes to mind is Total Eclipse of the Heart. Not appropriate for a Sunday service. But then we thought, well, maybe the birds. Turn, turn, turn to everything. Turn, turn, turn. There is a season. Turn, turn, turn.
That is biblical.
It is biblical, yes, but we're not getting to the Bible until Easter. I keep saying that, right? No, I talk about the Bible sometimes. It comes up in class a lot. Like, it's been coming up in class a lot recently. And then the other night in class I said, well, I keep saying that I'm going to talk about Jesus on Easter, and probably what will happen is I won't talk about Jesus at all on Easter, so I don't want to frighten everybody away if you have an issue with Jesus. It may come up, it may not come up, I don't know. What I will tell you is that he was a very wise man. So, turn around. Last week was March 4th. March 4th! This week, turn around. Are you tired of all the movement yet? No. So I also said that I don't have a lot to say this week, and then I wrote 14 pages of notes. But I have to trust that what needs to be said is going to come through perfectly and brilliantly today. Because this talk today is about one idea. It is about one idea, the concept of turning around. And I will get to it. Some of the things that have been prevalent for me this week, I've been hearing a lot of stories around me about life and about how things are not going according to people's plans and about how things could be better. And people who are starting to doubt their faith in this philosophy. This has been coming up for me this week. Because they feel like their life is not getting better. And ultimately, the reminder that I have to give everybody is, this philosophy is working perfectly. This philosophy is always working perfectly. What's happening in those situations typically are people giving into the circumstances of their life, and they're believing falsely that those circumstances are the truth. The circumstances are facts. The circumstances are just things that are going on in our life, but they are not the truth of our life. They're the facts of our experience. The truth is, you are greater than any experience or any circumstance in your life. Do you know that? You are greater than any circumstance in your life. That's the truth. So this week, what I decided to do with this talk is go back to the basics. And I've said this many times, but today we're really going to hone in on what the basic, simple teaching is. There are only two things we teach in this philosophy. That's it. Two things. We teach that God is all there is, and you are that. That's the first thing we teach. You are God. You see? I told you I'm going to say it every week until we all start feeling comfortable with this. You are God. You are God. And as a result, every single person around you is God. Because there's only one divine power. There is only one thing ever happening. And that is God. And so we are each uniquely individualizing as that power. There is no separation. It means there is no separation between me and Judy. We are the same thing. That's the truth. The second thing we teach in this philosophy is that everything operates based on the law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect. For everything that happens in your life, there is a perfectly corresponding cause. Here's where people don't want to hear about this law of cause and effect. The truth is, if there is a perfectly corresponding cause, that cause was created by you. And so if there are things that are going on in your life that you're not happy with, there's only one person who can change that, and that is you. Because that's the way the law of cause and effect works. A lot of people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear about the personal responsibility that is part of the basis of this philosophy. But the truth is, if you really, really embody the idea that you are God, and you really embody the idea that the universe operates based on the law of cause and effect, then there is no cause that will not operate perfectly to present to you a brilliant experience. So if there are things that are going on in your life that you are not happy with, it is your responsibility to change them. So we can frequently come up with people to blame in our life, circumstances to blame in our life. If we're not happy with our job, it's usually because of something that's happening outside of ourselves within the job. If we're not happy with our relationships, it's because of something that somebody else is doing. When you change your mind about these things, the inevitable consequence is everything changes. In The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes wrote, "Ignorance of the law excuses no one from its effects." Ignorance of the law excuses no one from its effects. The truth is the law is working perfectly at all times. At all times. So what we teach in this philosophy is to really understand what cause you are putting into this law. The cause only happens in mind. It only happens based on your thought, which is backed by a belief. So if there are things that are not going well in your life, what's the belief behind that? Because that's what you need to get to. I wrote here, that seems a bit harsh, doesn't it? It's the truth. It is the truth. The law is always working. And since you are God, it is always working perfectly. Even if the circumstances of your life aren't what you'd like to experience, the law is working perfectly. I can hear it. I can hear people's thoughts going, yeah, but... One of the things that, from my previous center that we always talked about were the yeah buts. And getting rid of the yeah buts. Because ultimately when you engage in the excuse, you're arguing for your limitations. You are arguing to be something other than God. You are arguing to be totally, totally identified by your human experience. So the first place where the healing of this concept begins, not the concept, the healing of the ill effects in your life begins is in not making excuses. Not making excuses. So those who are in class with me know that I'm a big fan of the dictionary. So I looked up the word excuses. Well, excuse. An excuse is a reason put forth to defend or justify a fault or offense. That's the first definition. The second definition, a reason put forward to conceal the real reason for an action. And I totally get the first definition. And I'm sure that many of us have used excuses in our lives. I've certainly used them in my life, trying to convince myself that what I was experiencing was okay. Now there's an interesting thought in there. Boy, now I'm going off topic for just a second, because this is exactly, I'm actually getting to the heart of what of this entire talk. I was trying to convince myself that what I was experiencing was okay, even though I was not happy with it. Rather than understanding that back of the experience was a cause that I had put into mind, and I had the opportunity to change the cause, to create what I want to experience. So there are various reasons that we don't want to admit fault. It's just something to take a look at. Why do you not want to admit fault? Because once you admit fault, in your own thinking, you can create something new. But again, it goes back to the idea that you are responsible. Because I don't want to sound too harsh, right? It's Sunday. We want to leave here feeling good. We don't want to leave here feeling like the spiritual director was admonishing us for our ill thinking, right? See, the good news is, if you created it, you can recreate it. That's the good news. So if you are experiencing anything, know that you can change it. That's the power of this teaching. So I want to talk really about the second definition of excuse. A reason put forward to conceal the real reason for an action. A reason put forward to conceal the real reason for an action. And it's in this definition that the answer to my entire conundrum with this talk exists. So like I said before, I've been faced this week with many questions, and really since I've been here in Toronto with many questions. Why are things not getting better in my life? I engage the story for a few minutes. I listen to the story, because everybody got to tell their story, right? And the answer is always clear to me in listening to the story. Those of you who are in my classes, what is the answer when I hear the story?
Consciousness.
Consciousness. You know what? It's a joke, but it really is the answer to everything. Consciousness is the answer to everything, because the only thing that exists is consciousness. You are the physical manifestation of consciousness. So that's all that's ever going on. So every answer can be consciousness. What's coming up in these conversations that people are having with me when they're telling me their stories are all the excuses. Again, they're all the reasons why they are limited in life. Conversations like, there is no one out there for me. There's no one out there for me. Oh, the job market is sluggish. Having a rough time, trying to find a job. I can't afford it. I'm in a tight position, I can't afford it right now. I'm sick. These are things that I hear. These are all limiting ideas. And when you find yourself engaging in the story, telling the story, you're limiting your own mind to continuing to create the same story, because that's the way that the law of cause and effect works. You're creating cause that is similar to cause that you've been creating all along by telling your story, because that story is backed by a belief. When you say, I am sick, you're believing that you can be sick, and that you can have that experience. When you are saying there's not enough, you are denying the abundance of the universe that is all around you, and is available to you, and available to each one of us, equally, perfectly. When you say the job market is sluggish and I'm having a hard time finding a job, you are placing into mind and into cause the idea that there is not infinite possibility for creative expression. So you could say all of these things, and one really good habit to get into is when you say things like, oh, the job market is sluggish, finish it off, say, and so it is. I'm sick, and so it is. There's no one out there for me, and so it is. Now, for those of you who are here for the first time and maybe not involved in this philosophy, and so it is how we finish our spiritual mind treatments, which are affirmative prayer. It's our version of prayer in this philosophy. So when we say, and so it is done. It is a done idea in the mind of God. And so it must demonstrate. Because the law of cause and effect always demonstrates perfectly based on what you are putting into it in mind, consciously and subconsciously. This is why we work to go into figuring out what is going on in our subconscious. And you want to know what's going on in your subconscious? You can always tell what's going on in your subconscious. Look at your life. Because everything that's happening in your life is based on conscious and subconscious thought and belief. So that's how you begin to change it. You recognize that it's there. You recognize that it's there. When you recognize that it's there, you then have the power to make a new choice. The more you sit in limitation in your mind, the more your life expresses as limitation. So what do you do? What do you do? Some of you may feel like you are in a downward spiral in your life. When you feel like you're in a downward spiral, that's the time to get really clear. You've got to watch what you're saying. You've got to be careful of the stories you're telling. Those are all backed by belief. Those downward spirals, when you're moving in that direction, what I typically say is you're heading into the shadows. Do you know how to get out of the shadows?
Turn around.
Turn around. Do you know why that works? If you're casting a shadow, where is the light?
Behind you.
Behind you. Turn around. And go towards the light, Carol Ann. That just came to me.
The shadow will tell you what time it is.
The shadow will tell you what time it is. Time to turn around. So if you are only seeing or experiencing the shadows in your life, turn around. Now, I want to be very clear. This is not to say, deny that things are happening in your experience. Do not put your head in the sand. If things are happening in your experience, it is good to recognize those things. Because like I said before, you want to know what's going on in your subconscious? Look at your life. Those are the clues to changing your thought. But if you want to change the experience, it all happens in mind first. So honor the shadows. Use them to develop a deeper understanding of what is operating in your life. Then change it. Turn it around. See only light. Today, right now, is the opportunity for you to turn your life around if you're not happy with something. Don't wait until tomorrow. Start it now. because that's all you've got. Now the other thing is, how many of us are living in regret? How many of us are living with these ideas of the past, still operating as belief, which are creating the same things that were going on in the past? The more you live in regret of what happened in the past, the more you're bringing it to mind. You're creating that cause that is perfectly demonstrating in your life.
How's that working for you?
Not very well. It's not working very well. Here's how you combat that. Stop living in the past. You can't change it. This comes up a lot for me in treatment sessions. You can't change the past. Stop trying. And I get a little, snippy with it too, just like that. You can't change the past. Stop trying. You can't. What you can do is create something new. And the only place that happens is right here in this moment. And I'm not even talking about creating something new for the future, because as long as you put it into the future, the more it will remain in the future. You have the opportunity to turn it around right now. Right in this moment. Because this moment is the only moment you have. That's it. In The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes also writes, in treatment, we turn entirely away from the condition, because as long as we look at it, we cannot overcome it. This is what I'm talking about. As long as you look at the condition, you cannot overcome it, right? In treatment, turn entirely away from the condition. So when you do go and create that new cause, be very clear on what that cause is. In treatment, create the new cause. Treatment, as I said before, is our version of affirmative prayer. It is a structured way of changing your thought. It is a structured way of changing your thought. However, and people who are in class with me will also know that I get to this point, everything that comes out of your mouth is a treatment. Like I said before, I'm sick, and so it is. The job market is sluggish, and so it is. So, if you are new to this philosophy, be formal in your treatments to begin. Be formal in them. Be direct and specific and be clear. Because treatment is simply a process by which we change our minds. That's it. When we treat, we are not treating to change the conditions. We are treating to change our mind. Because our mind is where cause happens. The effect follows cause. So if you change the cause, the effects have to change. But when you're trying to change the effects, you're not getting at the root of the issue. By changing our minds, we do change our circumstances. And the more you formally engage in treatment on a regular basis, the more it becomes a habit. The more right thinking becomes a habit. The more correct thought becomes a habit. The more you open up to the understanding that you are unlimited. And then what you'll find is everything you talk about, whether it's in a formal treatment or not, is supporting that perfectly open idea and demonstrates in your life. So if you are experiencing ill effects, it's because you are essentially treating for them in your everyday life, and maybe not even realizing it. The ill effects which you constantly talk about, that you constantly bring to mind, will demonstrate perfectly. As you talk about them, you're speaking about them from a belief of a power that is behind everything you say. That belief impresses the law, and the law acts accordingly, because the law only knows to do. It only knows to do. That's it. And it's totally impersonal. It doesn't care what you put into it. It only knows to do. So when you start to formally engage in changing your mind, your everyday language will follow, and the law will follow that. and your life will follow the law. So today, begin the practice. Today, right now, this moment, engage in the practice of right thought, of constructive thought, of knowing that you are fully supported by this idea that God is all there is, and you are God. And so as you speak, it is done. Be formal with it until you don't need to be. And when you don't need to be, when you see the shadow, turn around. Turn around. Turn around. In Pierre's song, the first lyric is, "We are all connected in this place. Somewhere, somehow, something went wrong with the human race." Somewhere, somehow, something went wrong with the human race. What went wrong is that we began to believe that we were separate. We began to believe that there was something outside of us that had power. So today, right now, right here, we've got to get back to where we want to be. Loving, happy, prosperous, and free. I guarantee you, you begin to embody this practice of right thought, your life will turn around. Namaste.